So there's been a lot of talk, rightly so, of Joe Biden and the Democrats, the corporate Democrats, trying to rig the election. So, for instance, they tried to move the South Carolina primary up to make it the first primary. Now, why would they do that? Well, they claim, like, oh, it's because we care so deeply about representation and people of color and diversity. They say that, but the real reason they did it is because South Carolina went big for Joe Biden in the 2020 election, and they really saved his ass. Remember, he was doing terribly leading into the South Carolina primary. He was coming in like 4th and 5th in like New Hampshire and Iowa, and it was looking like he was dunzo, dog. But then he won huge in South Carolina. It totally changed the nature of the race, and then you had the day where all the other centrist candidates dropped out and endorsed Biden and stabbed Bernie in the back, and then that was the end of that, right? But that's the real reason, because they want to rig it up front. They want to do a state where they know Biden is strongest, and so they want to, like, any questions whatsoever about will this be a competitive primary, they want to put it to rest immediately. That's why they did it. So that was an attempt of them to rig it. Another attempt of them to rig it is just not having any debates. You know, flat out just being like, no, we're not going to do any debates, even though we were just talking about how much we love democracy and Republicans hate it. We're going to be like, democracy, that doesn't apply to us. Screw that. Well, now I just want to present this to you as well. Donald Trump and his people are also trying to rig the Republican primary. Okay, so in Reuters, Trump team lobbying for primary rule changes to boost his 2024 chances. Former President Donald Trump is leveraging his connections to loyalists in key primary states to lobby for voting rules and dates that could cement his front-runner status in the race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. His team and sources in several states told Reuters. Trump's campaign is reaching out to Republican state parties to push for the changes as party officials set the parameters for contests to kick off early next year ahead of the November 5th, 2024 presidential election. So guys, so far, this is exactly what Joe Biden is doing. Several states adopted Trump-friendly rules in 2020 to ward off competition for the then president. And a recent change in Michigan appears to have bolstered his advantage in the race to secure delegates who determine the party's nominee. Now the Trump campaign is advocating for modifications in half a dozen additional states, his co-campaign manager told Reuters. Half a dozen, Jesus. We work with state parties all over this country to engage in the process. Chris LaCivita said in an interview, the challenge that we were given by the president was to win every day and win every battle. This is just part of that. While it is known that Trump's team is trying to exert influence over the Republican machinery in important voting states ahead of 2024, the scale of the effort has not been previously reported. Holding earlier votes in certain pro-Trump states could give the former president momentum over his Republican rivals. So, in other words, this is, again, exactly what Joe Biden was doing. Exactly. Holding caucuses instead of primaries could also give more weight to grassroots activists loyal to him, political analysts said. So they want to lean on caucuses early, too. LaCivita confirmed that Nevada, an early primary state with a Trump-friendly state Republican leadership, was one of the campaign's targets. He declined to elaborate on the changes the campaign is seeking or to name the other states that they are involved in. In May, the Nevada Republican Party sued the state to be allowed to hold a caucus, arguing that being forced to have a primary infringed on constitutional rights. LaCivita said Trump's campaign was supportive of the lawsuit. A source close to the Nevada Republican Party told Reuters prior to the lawsuit that Trump's campaign was lobbying for a caucus. A source close to the Republican State Party in Idaho told Reuters that Trump allies had been lobbying to hold a nominating contest before May. Idaho Republicans over the weekend decided to hold off an early caucus instead of a primary, seemingly giving Trump an advantage in the state. Trump's lobbying efforts show a level of sophistication that his freewheeling 2016 campaign lacked and highlight how he stands to benefit now that several state parties are dominated by loyalists. Trump is not alone in trying to shape the 2024 battlefield in his favor. The Democratic National Committee in February approved President Joe Biden's. You know about all this. We talked about them changing their calendar. He's doing it too, man. Now, the other thing is, he was asked repeatedly, I think he was being interviewed by Hannity, and Hannity was asking him repeatedly about a Republican debate. And Trump kept dodging and saying, like, oh, I'm definitely going to debate Joe Biden. I'm definitely going to debate Joe Biden. And Hannity was asking about a Republican debate. Trump is trying to avoid even having a Republican debate. Why? Because he's leading by 1 million points. He doesn't want to risk anything. So he's like, yeah, let me just not have a Republican debate. Just won't show up, right? And trying to make it so the RNC abides. And clearly trying to exert tremendous influence to stack the deck early in his favor. Call it what it is. Biden's trying to rig his primary. Trump is trying to rig his primary. So these guys are, I mean, it's just, look, these people, they don't have any principles, right? They don't, it's literally all ego, narcissism, careerism, me. And it's like, no, let's try to make it a neutral, fair, objective, reasonable process. They're not doing it. And they're never going to do it. And by the way, it's at the point with Republican voters where I don't know if they'll care, right? It's like, yeah, we want him, so whatever he's got to do to get to that stage, it's good. Whereas with the Democratic voters, polls show voters are open to somebody other than Joe Biden. And they think Joe Biden's too old. They don't think he's all cognitively there. They want to see debates. We've covered polls on that. It's an overwhelming majority. They want to see debates. I haven't seen any polls on the Republicans on that front, but look, they're all greasy, they're all slimy, they're all grotesque, and they're all trying to rig it. They don't care how they win, they just want to win, and that is beyond sketchy and condemnable. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.